When I reviewed Contra Operation Galuga earlier this week, I found myself disappointed by its lack of ambition. It played well and did a good job of updating the lore, but it didn't really add much to the genre. Well, today I'm reviewing 7 Days Hero, a similar run-and-gun shoot-'em-up that may not look as good as the new Contra game, but comes with a more ambitious campaign and offers up a few new ideas to the tried-and-true formula. Unfortunately, this game proves that not all new ideas are good ones. And maybe, just maybe, I should have been a little bit more specific when I asked for a more ambitious action game. You'll see what I mean when I review 7 Days Heroes by Dolores Entertainment. This is the story of a trio of siblings who were born with powers and raised with the idea that they could, at some point, potentially become super soldiers. When their AI guardian goes rogue and decides to unleash a bunch of teeny tiny nanomachines on the world, it ends up turning those infected into a form of zombies. Now it's up to the 3 siblings, as well as their dog, to escape their confinement and stop the rogue AI dead in its tracks, all over the course of just 7 days. At first glance, this looks like a pretty typical run-and-gun action game, and in a lot of ways, it is. After a plane crash separates the siblings, you play as one of the brothers as he searches the lake and the nearby area for clues of his family's whereabouts. This plays out like Contra, Metal Slug, and countless other games in the genre. You shoot, double jump, climb walls, and do pretty much everything else that you're used to doing in this type of game, all with an adorable little pooch right behind you. Now, as our hero finds his siblings, the game opens up and shows you some of its unique ideas. One thing that you'll immediately notice is that each character follows the leader, so there will be levels where you're being followed by 2 different people as well as the dog. This allows you to switch between the different characters at any time, and as each of them has their own unique abilities, you'll be doing a lot of that if you want to survive this week from hell. The hero you start with is good with guns, so you'll spend much of the game finding and unlocking new types of firepower for him to fight with. His brother, on the other hand, is a bit of a nerd and specializes in secondary items that are more for convenience than combat. For example, one of the early items he'll find will act like a magnet for those nanomachines, which will be extremely useful in the later levels. There's also a sister who'll be able to use a bunch of necklaces to cast magic that'll help the squad. Oh, and don't forget about the dog, who can fit in tight spots and collect nanomachines that would otherwise be out of reach for the other siblings. Because there are so many different people in your party, you'll immediately notice that there are a lot of items and abilities to unlock. In fact, the game actually expects you to find new guns, necklaces, and special items in every single stage, some of which will actually have a substantial impact on how you play the rest of the game. That makes every level important, and I'll admit that the promise of new abilities and weapons was enough incentive to keep me invested throughout most of the game. You can also upgrade all this gear, so collecting all those nanomachines quickly becomes a big deal. This is one of the things the game actually gets right. In theory, there are some interesting ideas at play here that really should shake up the run-and-gun formula in some fun ways. The problem is that the developer of this game has no idea how to execute on the ambitions. The most glaring problem is that the levels aren't really designed with these different characters in mind. In most stages, you won't even need to switch between the different characters. You'll mostly use the gun-toting brother as he kills bad guys and makes his way to the checkpoints. All you really need is for one of the characters to get to the checkpoint, and the best hero for that job is always the one with tons of firepower. Believe it or not, it's actually worse than that, as these are some of the worst level designs that I've ever seen in a run-and-gun shooter. These are levels designed for a single hero to play through, yet you'll often have 3 extra characters taken right behind. And they don't directly mimic your movements either, so you'll have to rely on the AI's atrocious pathfinding. The computer-controlled characters are constantly getting stuck on what should be simple jumps, so you'll need to switch between them in order to manually get them through the stages. This is especially frustrating because the heroes will often make things harder than they need to be. I kept running into the issue of getting one hero where I wanted them, only to switch to another character and have the previous hero backtrack and make me lose all that progress. The only real solution to this is to switch characters and then immediately command everybody to stay put. That'll solve some of the issues, but it also means that you're going to need to tackle a lot of platforming challenges 4 different times, once per character. Yeah, that's frustrating and bad design. And then there's this bridge level, which has the single most obnoxious background that I've ever seen. It's the combination of color and sluggish animation that makes it a real eyesore. Look, I don't have epilepsy or suffer from seizures, but I felt like I was going to have real problems when playing these stages. I also found that it was impossible for me to tell the difference between the red bridge and the red enemies, something that led to so many cheap deaths that I just stopped counting after a while. It's especially bad when you're playing on a large television. I swear, I kept having to look away from the screen in order to protect my eyes. It felt kind of like somebody jumped out of the television and started flashing colors in my face when I was playing. It's bad, and I can't believe this game got released without somebody toning down that background. Once you get past the bridge levels, things end up going back to normal, but by that point, you're left with level designs that just aren't that much fun to play. This is one of those short games that feels like it's 100 hours long. The best parts are all at the beginning, and the initially intriguing story stops being compelling about halfway through. I like that Dolores Entertainment wanted to shake up the run-and-gun formula, but 7 Days Hero is not a game I can recommend. Not today, or any other day of the week. Seven Days Hero is a cautionary tale of what not to do when making a run-and-gun shoot-'em-up. While initially fun, you'll quickly grow frustrated with the platforming action once it introduces extra characters that follow behind our hero. Terrible pathfinding is just the start to a rage-inducing game that makes one mistake after another. And all that is before you run into the single most obnoxious video game background that I've ever seen. If you care for your eyes or sanity, then do everything in your power to avoid the terribly named 7 Days Heroes. Hey, thanks for watching our review. If you liked what you saw here, then you should know that we post new reviews and features almost every day. Now, here's the question I have for you. What's your favorite run-and-gun game or franchise? Are you a Metal Slug person? Maybe Contra? Personally, I'm really into Gunstar Heroes. Let me see your picks in the comments below. In other news, we'll be back on Friday with a review of Freedom Planet 2. Probably. Look, I know I've been promising that pretty much every day this week. We'll get to it, I promise. While you wait for that, I strongly recommend you click that subscribe button and support what we're doing here. Until then.